Hi all, my name is Samantha Mendez and this is my final project video for orchestration. So in today's video, I'll be talking about the traditional techniques, extended techniques that can be performed on clarinet, and the role of the clarinet in the orchestra. In this video, I won't be playing on the clarinet since I ruptured my eardrum a couple weeks back and I don't want to further injure myself, so I'm going to be showing videos instead. So let's get into it. What are traditional techniques? Traditional techniques on the clarinet are all the basics you need to begin playing the clarinet. This includes instrument setup, performer setup, how to breathe, how to produce a sound on the instrument. Some traditional techniques that we'll be talking about today include posture, embouchure breathing, blowing fingering, and articulation. So let's get straight into it. So posture. So whether you're sitting down or standing up, you want to make sure that you're upright and tall. You want to keep your feet shoulder width apart. When standing, don't lock your knees, otherwise you might pass out. It's important to stay relaxed and carry little to no tension in your body. This will help allow the sound on the clarinet to be relaxed, smooth, and nice. And then also, tension is kind of one of the leading causes for injury in musicians, so it's nice to just have none of that. When sitting, you want to make sure you're sitting at the front of your chair. You should be able to alternate between sitting and standing up. So here, sitting in the plank position, and then easily standing, sitting, and so on and so forth. All right. So when holding the clarinet, the right hand is placed on the lower joint and the left hand is placed on the upper joint. The right hand thumb is the main balance point on the clarinet. So basically you should be able to do this and not drop it. The right thumb is what holds the rest and helps control the thumb rest, sorry. Right thumb holds the thumb rest and helps control how much or how little mouthpiece you're taking in or out. Moving on to embouchure. The embouchure is how the mouth forms when playing the clarinet. A correct embouchure is a staple technique to learn when playing the clarinet, since it has a lot of effect on the sound production and breathing. The clarinet should be held at a 45-degree angle from the body, and to form the clarinet embouchure, you should hold your lower lip over your bottom teeth, have a firm, flat chin. You want to bring the corners of your mouth inwards, and you want to have an open oral cavity. So basically you should have pretend to have peanut M&Ms in your molars to keep that space open. The tongue should be high and forward, and the tip of the tongue should touch the tip of the reed. So yeah, it's a lot to think about, but it's all important to create a good sound on the clarinet. So moving on to breathing. Breathing is a very important technique when it comes to playing any instrument. Many people breathe shallow or feel their chest, so up here moves and not necessarily your diaphragm, tummy area. A lot of people move their shoulders, so they go. So basically that's wrong. Your shoulders should be relaxed and not raised when you inhale. The goal of this is to breathe low and fill up your lungs, and your tummy should expand. That's how you know you're doing it right. You can practice this by laying on the floor and putting a heavy book on your stomach, and if the book raises up and down and nothing else moves up here, you know you're doing it right. Moving on to blowing. So to make a sound on the clarinet, the reed needs to vibrate, and in order for the reed to vibrate, you have to blow air into the instrument. So with the proper embouchure and air support, blowing into the clarinet will make making a sound much easier. So fingering. So as I mentioned, right hand goes on the lower joint, left hand on the upper joint. So for these holes, it's going to be right hand 1, 2, 3. So 3 is going to be in charge of this hole right here, as well as this fork key. Your pinky is going to just kind of hover around these keys right here, and then thumb on the rest. Also, the right hand pointer finger, or it's going to be in charge of these side buttons, so you can just use the side of your hand to hit those. Moving on to the left hand, it's going to be thumb, and then 1, 2, 3, a little more in detail. The thumb needs to be in a position where it can easily hit that register key. 1, 2, 3, again, the third finger over here is going to be in charge of this little fork key, and then the pinky is going to kind of hover over these. It's important to not like have super flat fingers or like wonky, I don't know. You want to find the best position where you can cover everything, but also be able to hit everything. A good idea is to like pretend like you have a ball in your hand, so that like you're remembering, I need to keep curved and I need to cover everything and just stray away from any weird movement. Moving on to our last traditional technique, articulation. So to successfully articulate on the clarinet, the embouchure, the breathing, the blowing, and the overall setup needs to be in place. The tip of the tongue, as I mentioned, should be at the tip of the reed. And you just want to use the syllable T or ta. There's many different syllables that we're taught to use, so I'm not too sure what's the correct one, but I guess whatever one helps you and sounds the best. So the articulation happens from the release of the tongue from the reed. So T, 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 yeah. So moving on to extended techniques. What are extended techniques? Extended techniques are known as the non-traditional methods of singing or playing musical instruments. The methods are unusual and have a unique sound to them. Extended techniques are used more in today's modern music compared to like back then. There are a variety of extended techniques, but today we'll be focusing on a few for the clarinet, including alternate fingerings, microtones, multiphonics, air playing, playing without the mouthpiece, lap tongue, key clicking, circular breathing, double tonguing, flutter tonguing, pitch bending, or also called glissandi. So starting with alternate fingerings. Alternate fingerings are exactly what they sound like. They give the player a variety of ways to play a single note. The purpose of alternate fingerings are to change the tone quality of notes or to give the player options when playing difficult passages. So when pushing in or pulling out, your joints don't work to help improve your sound. An alternate fingering might like be the thing to help. If you have a hard run to perform, but there's like a tricky fingering in there, maybe an alternate fingering could help compared to like the traditional fingering. So an example of an alternate fingering is F sharp. So this F sharp is pretty much what we learn to play as beginners. And then alternate F sharp is chromatic F sharp. So in the chromatic scale, it's just easier to play this F sharp. So it's thumb and then the second button over here. Another one is B flat. So clarinet B flat is kind of a weird note to play, often out of tune. So alternate fingerings help improve the tone quality of that. So one that we use is the regular B flat and then 3, 3, and then some buttons down here. It's kind of like player preference of what to push down and what to lift up to get a good sound. All right, moving on. So microtones. Microtones are intervals that are smaller than a semitone. These can be produced by fake fingerings, adjusting the embouchure, or a mixture of both. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will dive into the first video.
Low enough music for the player to be able. Microtones are perfectly possible to do. Not advisable in fast music because most players, even ones who are playing contemporary music a lot of the time, are still not used instinctively to playing quarter tone finger. It needs to be.
Alrighty, let's move on to our next one. So up next we have multiphonics. So multiphonics, it's when you're playing a note, but you can also make another note play with it. I won't do it justice just because I don't really know how to do them, but I'm going to go ahead and play this video that hopefully makes sense.
Today we're going to talk about multiphonics. Multiphonics on the clarinet are when you get multiple tones on basically a single line instrument. They're really kind of cool sounding and they're not hard.
Alrighty, moving on to the next topic. We have multiphonics sung, and that's basically the same thing as what we just watched with the multiphonics played, except now you're voicing into the instrument. So let's go ahead and see what that sounds like.
Sometimes singing the same note that you're playing. Which is most useful. I mean, if
Alrighty, moving on to the next one. So we have air playing. Air playing is when you blow air into the instrument without making a true sound. There are faint notes that come through the instrument, but not much sound is produced. So it's basically just I don't know if you could hear that. It kind of hurt you. But the fingers that you put down or put up, it makes an obvious difference. Not very obvious. It's not very loud. Some pieces of music may call for blowing into the instrument to like create wind sounds. I've had to do that before. So yeah, it's not too loud of an effect on the clarinet, but it does something when there's enough people doing it. Next is playing without mouthpiece. Similar to air playing, there's not much sound production from the clarinet whenever you play without the mouthpiece. Yeah, so to do this, the mouthpiece is removed from the instrument. So, not the whole thing. The mouthpiece is removed, and then you're just left with the barrel, all the joints in the bell, and you just kind of play into the barrel. So let me go ahead and share what this is like.
you can, but they're probably instruments.
Yeah. Alrighty, on to the next one. So up next we have slap tongue. So slap tongue is performed by forcefully removing the tongue from the reed. This produces a slap or like a popping sound along with the note being played. This technique is best performed on bass clarinet or the saxophone. It can be done on the clarinet, but it requires a lot more effort and attention to get it as loud and as effective. But most of the time, a lot of people experience like a soft, quiet sound or squeaks. Let me go ahead and share my screen and show you what this sounds like. Yeah, pretty cool. Alrighty, moving on to the next. We have key clicking. So key clicking is a technique that requires the finger action and not necessarily like sound from the mouth. To do this, you simply just press down on the keys. On the clarinet, this technique is pretty quiet. It takes more force to produce key clicking on the clarinet, which can be damaging to the instrument. It's best heard in the lower joint of the clarinet, and this technique works best on the bass clarinet or the saxophone. So it's just clicking the keys. All right, moving on to circular breathing. Circular breathing is a technique that allows the player to produce a continuous sound with no interruption, as a regular breath would. So to do this, you breathe in through your nose while you're blowing air out of your mouth at the same time. So I do have a video for this. Let's share that. So normally when you play clarinet, you don't want anything down here to move, but given that this performer is circular breathing, their nose is moving and it looks like they're swallowing. There's just a lot going on because the air is alternating back and forth from one another. All right, let's stop sharing. And our next topic is double tonguing. So double tonguing, along with other forms, including like triple tonguing, is a technique that allows the performer to articulate a series of multiple notes one after another at a rapid speed. This can be done by saying tiki or tuku, or other syllables. So let's go ahead and see what this is like.
So something like that.
Yeah, so it's very fast. Let's stop sharing. Okay, next we have flutter tonguing. So flutter tonguing is a technique that replicates the sound as if you were to roll your R's. The tongue rolls at a rapid speed for this technique, and to do this, you just roll your tongue while playing the instrument. So in Spanish, like there's a lot of R's that you roll like, so you're basically doing that at the same time that you're playing a note. I don't think I'm doing it justice, but let me go ahead and show you a video on how this sounds. Yeah, so it's a pretty cool technique to use. Moving on to our final extended technique, it's pitch bending and glissandi. So pitch bending, also referred to as glissando, is a technique where the performer can make a smooth transition between a series of notes while playing everything in between. This can be done with like alternating or like messing with your embouchure, lipping up or down, by sliding fingers off the notes, off the holes of the clarinet. What I mean by sliding is just like gently removing them, and then it kind of like messes with the sound. So let me share a final video for this extended technique. And then of course you can go like in a more wider range, from higher to lower. It just takes a lot of control. So let's go ahead and stop sharing and move on to our final part of this video. So the role of clarinet in the orchestra. I've never performed in an orchestra, so this information is a little bit new to me. But basically what I found is that the clarinet in B flat and A or E flat are used in the orchestra setting. These instruments are used for their rich tone, acoustics, and aesthetic. The bass clarinet is also used in the orchestra. And the clarinet is like a very beautiful instrument, and it's great for solos and leading parts. The clarinet projects well through the ensemble, especially in the clarion and the altissimo range. The clarinet blends well with other instruments, including the oboe, bassoon, French horn. However, the clarinet is not the most important voice in the orchestra. It's great for like the middle range, and it's most effective there. If there's a part that like maybe a trumpet would typically play, but it's like a little bit more difficult, the clarinet can take on that role. And so, yeah, the clarinet is important, but not as important as like the strings and other instruments. And overall, it just adds to the effect, adds to the sound and the quality. And that is all I have for my final project. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope y'all learned something, because I did. And thank you for watching.